Hello everyone, Ace here, and today, well, let's talk about comic books, or more specifically, comic books based on video games. As people who watch my live streams know, I've actually been starting to get into covering video game comic books. Part of the reason being to help preserve these comic books, because many of them are very, very obscure, and in some cases may be at risk of potentially becoming lost media if efforts weren't taken to preserve them here and now. The Battle Tanks comic being a good example of that. These comic books also tend to be an excellent opportunity to expand upon the lore of the games they are based on, which is good considering that some of the games that these comics are based on are themselves a little on the obscure side these days, even if they do often deserve to be better remembered. On that subject, allow me to introduce to you all the Brute Force Betrayals comic book, which was made to promote Brute Force, an Xbox exclusive video game from 2003. The game itself being a fairly decent co-op themed third-person shooter, which sadly flew under the radar in part because it didn't release with support for Xbox Live in 2003. An excellent indicator of just how important Xbox Live was even back then. On the comic book itself, I should mention a few additional details though. First of all, it's apparently an adaptation of some of the stories from Brute Force Betrayals, the book, which was a book made to, of course, promote the video game, as well as expand upon the lore of it. The second thing to note is that the comic itself had a very, very limited release, being provided as part of the Brute Force Premium Kit, which was only ever released in Japan, meaning that this comic book is written in Japanese. And yes, for those curious, this does indeed appear to be a comic book rather than a manga. Now, I will say that the artwork isn't exactly fantastic, but I am at least curious to see what exactly is the plot of this particular book, because the story itself might still be solid, who knows. And even failing all of that, it's still an extremely rare piece of video game history, and as longtime viewers no doubt know, I'm all about preserving that sort of thing. But why am I telling you all of this right now? Well, it's because I have a need for someone who can, in fact, translate this book from Japanese to English. The plan is to take the images that exist of this book and edit the speech bubbles so that they are in English instead of Japanese. And for those who are curious, you'll be interested to know that the entire comic book has actually, in fact, already been preserved in a way, thanks to some reasonably good quality screenshots of the entire book that have been preserved on the Brute Force fan wiki. So I'll of course be leaving a link to that in the description below for those who are curious. Finally, since I can't really figure out a good place to put this particular bit of information, I'll just leave it at the end here. But I was also able to confirm that there are in fact multiple variations of front cover for this comic book, though the contents within the comic itself appear to be the same, but still a tidbit worth mentioning to say the very least. Finally, I should mention that I will of course be keeping an eye out on eBay to see if there are ever any more of these premium kits that come on sale. That way I would be able to scan the images myself, which would be of course the ideal outcome in this situation. But with all of that said, this has been Ace. Hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.